working with Kyle Sandilands, you expect people to have opinions on it, and that's absolutely fair enough. I just didn't think people would kick me out of the Feminist club. I didn't know that you could do that. She sent me a big message explaining why I couldn't be a feminist anymore, and then unfollowed me. And then she started commenting on like the Kyle Sandilands live page.
What you're experiencing is that you are now the wrong type of leftist because you've dared to go and work for someone who they don't like. They're just like, nah, you're out. You're out. Unless you are 100%, you're out.
Guys, welcome to Unserious, where we unpack the biggest issues, smallest controversies, and most terminally online debates, from who gets to call themselves a feminist to being too soft in the workplace. I'm Liz Burke, and I'm joined by news.com.au's Mary Madigan.
Hello.
And News 24's Caleb Bond.
Good to be here as always.
Mary, you've been out being controversial again. So for anyone who doesn't know, Mary has spread her wings, taken up an on-air role with Kyle Sandilands Live. So you're doing that in your very early mornings, in addition to joining us in the studio and still writing for news.com.au. But there have been some opinions to be had about that, which I guess is not surprising because, I mean, Kyle's a divisive guy.
Yes.
But there was one bit of feedback you weren't expecting. What was that?
Yeah, I think if you take a job working with Kyle Sandilands, you expect people to have opinions on it, and that's absolutely fair enough. I just didn't think people would kick me out of the Feminist club. I didn't know that you could do that. But
I really don't think you can.
I know, but they were trying to.
Hand over your card, Mary. Come on.
Yes.
Give it here.
But I got a lot of people being like, you can't call yourself a feminist anymore. There's one girl I like kind of, like, know is probably too strong, but we've been to like similar parties, like have friends in common, follow each other on Instagram. And like she sent me a big message explaining why I couldn't be a feminist anymore, and then unfollowed me. And then she started commenting on like the Kyle Sandilands live page, just being like, so disappointing to see Mary doing this. Like, I was like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
So this is because they think Kyle is a misogynist.
I guess,
sexist.
yeah. They definitely think, that's what they think. But also, I just find it really fascinating, the idea of like defining a woman's beliefs by one person, like one man in her life, or like one employer, I guess, as well. It's a weird line to make. Like, it's a weird conclusion to draw.
Yeah. But it's the purity thing, though, isn't it? I mean, basically what they're saying is that you must be as pure as the driven snow. If you interact with someone who I disagree with, therefore, you're not the right form of feminist, or not the right form of leftist. I mean, I see this all the time on the left.
It's an example of like it is. You'll love this. It's an example of the left eating the left, right?
Yes,
where you're like,
you're very good at it.
I can't be left wing. Like I'm no longer left wing enough.
But you know why? You know why that's the case?
Tell me.
Because lefties are intolerant people. On the whole,
you've crossed the arms.
On the whole, they are. No, it's true. It's true that you are experiencing the intolerance.
Do you find
of the
me?
left.
I'm a lefty. Do you find me intolerable?
Well, no, I don't find you intolerable because I am tolerating you. I'm here with you.
Because he's on the right, so he's famously tolerant.
But do I think you're tolerant? Yes, in general, I think you do, and I think maybe you're realising that some of your other compatriots on the left are not so tolerant of other views. And this is the thing, right? You know, I have left-wing friends and have been out with left-wing women, and they've always
You have famously dated left-wing
and
women.
and they have always said to me that they found far less difficulty getting along with my right-wing friends than they found in convincing their left-wing friends to get along with me. Because people on the right, for whatever reason,
they have to take what they can get.
Well, they're just willing. They're willing to allow and look at other people's points of view. And what you're experiencing is that you are now the wrong type of leftist because you've dared to go and work for someone who they don't like.
Yes.
It's as simple as that. They're just like, nah, you're out. You're out. Unless you are 100%, you're out.
Yeah, basically. But and not everyone's like that, clearly. But I just found it interesting that in this day and age, we're still telling women, because feminism is pretty simple. It just means believing in equality between men and women. Like, it's become complicated and it's become politicized. But if you look at its core value, it's just like women deserve equal treatment to men, equal opportunities. That's literally all it is.
Should be.
And I know you can argue that it's become more than that, sure. But if you were like going to boil it down, and that's what I believe, that's how I see it, I just think like it's very strange to decide that means I'm not a feminist anymore, when ultimately you might argue that like I've got a different platform now. And also on that show, I do talk about feminism, or I do offer, I think, a feminist perspective when it comes to it that Kyle probably doesn't always have. So I just think it's really interesting. And I also think it's just kind of like that example for women, and I'm sure you feel this sometimes, Liz, where like you're just never quite good enough. You know, as women, like we love to tell women what they are and what they aren't and how they're failing at something. You know, whether it's like you're a mum or you're a feminist, like every time you're just doing it like a little bit wrong. And I find that really fascinating. But I also think what happens is, yeah, absolutely, people on the right hear these things or hear maybe me share this and they're like, well, this is the problem with the left. Like, and yeah, to a certain extent, I agree. Like, we can't do this to each other. And I often think sometimes my feminism collides with like my common sense, which is like ultimately like I'm
That's
like
what it should be, really.
yeah, like I'm a practical person, like because I have to be, right? And so I'm like, yeah, I might have some ideals, but in reality, like I need to pay my bills, I need to have a job, and I don't know. I also don't find Kyle sexist.
Well, and this is the point, right? I mean, yeah, everyone's got to pay the bills, but you left one job to take up another job, right?
Yeah.
So the offer was good and you wanted to work for the guy, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. You don't find him sexist?
No.
You don't find him to be a misogynist?
No, I wouldn't have taken the job if I thought those two things were true. And I think this is the thing, right? We throw around words now where we're like, this person is a sexist, this person isn't a feminist. Like, we really love to tell people what they can and can't be. And I think what all that happens is it just confirms people, like it just makes people go inward. You know, and not share things because, like, well, and I think it also makes feminism become this thing where young women think, well, I'm not a feminist because I don't live up to it.
And also, you don't want to define yourself as a feminist because you don't want to be involved in this political debate.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And this was Julie Bishop famously once said...
Julie Bishop and I have a lot in common, so that makes sense.
she famously once said that, you know, she believes in equality, but she won't call herself a feminist.
Yeah.
Because so many feminists have driven women out of the idea of being called a feminist. And they will not allow you to have a single view that dissents from their own. Well, if you want to gatekeep the ideology so much, you can't be surprised that people would then go, oh, actually, I'm not sure I'm on board with that.
Yeah, I think there's two things that are really interesting about this, that these women, and they are women that have all said this to you, right?
There's no man being like, hey.
No, hey, girl, I don't think you can call yourself feminist anymore. These women who are so passionate about feminism find that your feminism should be defined by a man.
Yes.
I think that's just really quite ironic and just not it.
Great.
And also the assumption that your employment or like anything that's really nothing to do with feminism or politics or anything, that should be seen as a political statement.
Yes.
Like, I don't think you considered that when you were deciding whether or not to take on this role. I don't think your employer considered that, was like, you know what, this was going to really show the feminists and that's what they're going to stake the thing on. Like, it's about you doing a job and enjoying it and deciding on whether or not you want to do it and if you're getting out of it what you want.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's so fascinating to me exactly that my feminists will just define me by one relationship with one man, which I think is weird. But also the idea that like so-called feminists will take the time to mesh someone they don't know to put down another woman about something that ultimately is pretty harmless. Like, and I find it all really interesting, and I think it's probably because I haven't been on this part of the internet before, right, where this has been a criticism of mine, and I just was surprised by it, and I was surprised by how
you're used to being too feminist, right?
Yeah. Usually I'm like called a feminist bitch, so I was like, oh, this is like really different to me. But also this idea of how like people get so on their high horses. And my question, I didn't respond to most of them, but my question back always wanted to be, well, who's your employer? Like, are they perfect? Are they exactly aligned with your values? Like, no one's does, in the same way that no one's friends exactly do. Like, what do you want me to do?
I really liked one line that you wrote in this piece, because you did write about this on news.com.au on the weekend, saying, I'd actually say it is sexist and boring to define women by the men in their lives, which is so true. But like, it's just that word boring really struck me. I think that anyone who defines others by their work or their employer is just so dull. And I've found this like at parties. I think this happens to people who are in positions like ours in the media where, you know, your work is somewhat public and people are going to have opinions on where you work and who you work for and what you do. And if someone wants to go me on a party about my employer, about who I work for, about the kind of work that I'm doing and, you know, that it doesn't align to their values, my response, whether I say it out loud or not, is always, it's Saturday. Is this really what we want to be talking about?
It's also this thing of like, I think when your job is public, it allows everyone to have like their soapbox moment.
Yeah.
Because they can be like, well, this is the fault that I see in your work, you know? Whereas I'm like, well, where did you fuck up today at work?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or what was like a policy your work did that maybe isn't perfect? Like, it
How
just
did you
allows-
support feminism today?
Yeah.
There are people out there, and we all work for News Corp, have done for a long time, and they seem to think that we get like some edict from Rupert Murdoch every day about, oh, you've got to say. It doesn't work like that. I mean, these people have brainworms. They have convinced themselves of what they think.
Brainworms.
They've convinced
I
themselves
would like
of
to
what
hear-
they think things are, and they're just not like that. And
I
it's-
would like
it's-
to hear from Rupert every day. I would be happy if he like briefed me on what
famously,
he wanted.
famously, you feel neglected, Mary.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, put that down.
and this is exactly what they've done with Kyle. They have decided that because you're working with Kyle Sandilands, that somehow that means that Kyle Sandilands sets the tone for everything that is said on that show. Now, sure, it is his show, but he's hired you knowing what you do and what you say.
Oh, yeah,
and he
the
wants
point
that as part of his program. He
is
doesn't come
this-
in the morning and say, "You got to be more right wing, Mary."
No.
Like
The
people-
other day we had this clip and it went viral and I was like rolling my eyes at something he said and someone was playing it in the office for him and they were like, and he was like, that was hilarious, like, you know, just keep rolling your eyes, like if you disagree, like he's like, I love it, I love how your expression is disgust or whatever. I think he was like going on about the co-vaccine and my face the whole time was like, oh, and he like thought that was funny. Like the whole point is that we have different perspectives, like, and otherwise he would have hired someone different. So I also think people don't. I'm like, well, would you prefer there not to be a feminist voice in that show? Would that be better?
Yeah.
Like, I
Well,
don't know.
also, if you don't like it, turn it off.
Yeah.
I mean, I get emails from people, oh, I didn't like what you said about that. Well, turn the bloody television off. Well,
But I find
whoever
in
you
general,
are.
the people have the most to say. I'm like, you're not even listening to the show.
Yeah,
like, because
exactly.
it's a
Yes, I
subscription
know,
show.
exactly. Yes,
I'm like,
yes.
so this, you could actually just pretend this whole thing isn't happening and
Yeah.
go on about your day.
Yeah.
Well, look,
pathetic.
we're meant to have different perspectives as well, so I think I'm going to move on because we're all agreeing too much.
Yeah, that's true, right.
But another issue that people are having their feminism challenged over is what's going on with the Sydney Swans, which we debated whether or not we would talk about this, but really, it's the only story in town. Everyone's talking about it. You can't avoid it. We don't need to get into the whole issue because it's very much still a developing and moving story. And honestly, I don't think at the crux of it, it's really one for us to discuss. Serious allegations of sexual assault against players. We're starting to hear from the women at the centre, one of whom says she's had a traumatic experience and has seen her world turned upside down. We'll leave the investigation and the handling of that to the relevant authorities, I think. And, you know, if other commentators want to have their 2 cents, that's for them. It's not really in the spirit of Unserious. But there is a debate that's kicked off around whether you can still support the Swans and identify as a fan. There's been this big push to boycott. You're a big AFL fan. Caleb, is it awkward to be an AFL fan at the moment?
No, not at
Are
all.
you a Crows supporter?
Oh, Crows,
Yeah.
man. We had
Yeah.
a nice win on the weekend.
That's because half the Swans are suspended.
No, we weren't playing the Swans.
Yeah.
No, the Swans had a nice win over North Melbourne too.
Yeah.
I frankly thought all those people, and look, if you watched and read some sections of the media, you'd think everyone walked out of the SCG
I
on
actually think it
Sunday.
wasn't that many because when you looked
No,
at the shot on the TV, you always know it's a big crowd when there's a bit wide shot and a small crowd when there's quite
Yeah.
a tight shot. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, there's like
it wasn't that many. And
30 or something
it was a double header, AFLW and then a men's game. And the AFLW game had 16,000 and they had 30,000.
Which is a
in.
huge turnout. For
Yeah,
a
it was.
women's game.
Yeah. And 30,000 in for the men's game. Now, some people have tried to make it out that the crowd for the AFLW match was so big because of stuff that happened during the week. Maybe that's true to some degree. I think the double header thing also contributes to it because you go, well, it's a Sunday afternoon.
I think it's
like-
also just like kind of a bit insulting to be like, oh, the boys messed up, so now why don't we get into women's AFL?
Yeah.
But
I
it's
don't
like,
like that attitude.
it's a Sunday afternoon. There's 2 games of football.
Yeah,
and I'm
so
going
you-
to the men's one anyway. Why don't I go watch a bit of the
Yeah.
women's football, right?
Yeah.
So I think that just gives it a natural boost. But you'd believe if you listen to some people that everyone walked out, and they didn't. There were some people who walked out and had signs, and they were interviewed by 6 p.m. News or
There was
whatever.
a mum
But-
holding a sign with her teenage son. I was just impressed she got her teenage son to hold a sign of any kind.
But frankly, I thought it was pathetic that people walked out because it is not what may or may not have happened in a hotel room a week ago involving 5 players who've been suspended rightly by their club while police investigate what went on. That has nothing to do with all the other players on the ground. It has nothing to do with the rest of the club. If you support your club, you support the club. You can say, okay, 5 blokes over there, not sure what went on there. I'm not supporting them right now. But why is it everyone else's fault, and why should they have to cop the brunt of it? Because 5 people were involved in what is now a criminal investigation.
I think it would be really different if the club hadn't suspended the 5 players. Right?
Yeah, maybe so.
Then
but they had to. I mean, that was never not going to happen.
No, I agree. But then maybe there'd be something to boycott, right? Because you're like, there's these allegations, the club's not doing anything. It's, I would understand that conversation then. I think the Swans club has actually done everything that they should have done in this situation, which is suspend the players for a whole season, which is a big call. They didn't even just say we're going to suspend them until the investigation's concluded. They were like, no, the behaviour, even as it stands, which isn't up for debate, which is that they were drinking and had strippers over. Like, they're like, that's unacceptable for our club. So they've taken a big stand, I think. And the rest of the players haven't, as far as we know, done anything wrong. So I don't think we need to boycott. I do think it would have been, I'm a Swans supporter and I often do go to the games and I really enjoy them. I didn't have tickets for this particular Swans game, so I definitely didn't boycott. Do I think it would have been an awkward vibe? Yeah. It just felt a little like, I think not that I don't want to boycott. I wouldn't like bother to go there to walk out. Like, I wouldn't be bothered with that. But I was like, yeah, it probably would have felt weird.
Yeah. I was considering going. So I had tickets like available to me. And I probably wouldn't have even thought about going if if it hadn't been in the news this much, and then realised that it was on the weekend.
Well, it was a game against North Melbourne. It wasn't exactly going to be a,
but it's a good time though. It was like in the afternoon at the SCG. Right? It was great weather. I would have loved to have gone and taken along the kids, but I think I just thought, oh no, it's too awkward.
Really?
You don't want to. Yeah. But I think what I find interesting about talk of a boycott is there's confusion over what the boycott is about. It's like I think there are some people who are saying, I'm going to boycott the Swans or the AFL because of the behaviour or the first of all, the defined behaviour and the alleged behaviour of these 5 players. And then there seems to be a secondary protest over how the AFL has handled it and over how the club has handled it. So, and those, I think, are 2 completely different things.
I think it's unfair to be critical of the club because I feel like...
What more are they meant to do?
What else could they do?
But I think this has been part of the problem, is that the minute it was aired publicly, there's something of a lynch mob that wants to say you're guilty until proven innocent. And so they want the club and the AFL and everyone to come down hard on it. It's like, but hang on a minute. There are allegations and they're being investigated by the police.
I do
wonder. So what more are we meant to do?
But again, I think it just comes back to me, like, I will say, like, I have a Swans hat that I wear all the time because it's just like, it's a gorgeous shade of red on me, obviously. And it goes without saying I look gorgeous in it. But, like, I didn't wear on the weekend because I was like, I just worry that people think I'm, like, supporting the boys that were being like this. It feels political.
We had a Jersey Day at my kid's school the week before last, so just before all this came out. And as soon as because that was on the Friday and this news came out on the Monday, I was so relieved that my kid, I'd sent him to school in a Swans jersey the week before and not the week after.
What would you say? Because if it was Jersey Day this week, he'd be like, he'd want to wear the Swans. Yeah. And what do you, like, you would have, you'd have to relent, right?
No, I just say, it's in the wash.
Oh, yeah, you can outsmart kids, can't you?
I can't be explaining this at the playground at drop-off. It's just too much.
Yeah, you can't be like, I'm not okay with what's happened, but it is his favourite team.
Yeah.
But again, and I think that's really sad. And I think part of the problem now as well is that you've had this drip feeding of
information,
details, which could be completely unfounded or true. We don't know. Some of it's come from police sources, some of it's clearly coming from lawyers. And the longer this goes on, while the police investigation is also ongoing, as far as we know, to this point when we're recording, players haven't even been questioned yet. They've only talked to staff at the club. I mean, it's just taken on a life of its own. And none of us, apart from the people who were in that room or on the, involved in the case in some way, know what's going on.
Yeah.
And so many people are trying to decide, well, it did or it didn't. It's like, we've got to take a step back. Seriously, we've got to take a step back and let this play out. And here's the other thing as well. There was all this conjecture that it shouldn't be talked about as a football story. Like it should be treated purely as a sexual assault claim. So, for instance, Kane Cornes came out and said, a former football player, now media personality, and he said, if I were one of the teammates of these boys, I would be so livid about what they've done. We're 2 weeks away from the finals. It's endangered the team's chances, etc., etc. And there's sort of been this talk, well, we've got to separate the footy out entirely from this and not acknowledge that there are ramifications for a football club in all of this as well. And I don't think that's fair either. I mean, it is also a football story.
I think it's just those comments can come across as callous. I get that he's coming from the football bloke thing, and he's also, that's what he talks about. Like, I understand, but I think you're like, oh, that's really not important if an assault has taken place.
Yeah.
Yeah, but surely you can walk and chew gum at the same time.
No, people can't in the media.
But this is the...
People can't.
But this is the issue. I'm not sure it's the media, really, that whipped it. I think it might have been others.
People can't online.
People reacted.
Yeah, online, I think that's
because
right.
if it was like, if a Prime Minister or a Premier or a Senior Minister was accused of something like this 2 weeks out from an election, absolutely we'd be talking about the assault allegations and the criminal investigation, but there would also be so many column inches on what this means politically.
But I guess
and if it was like a CEO of
100%
of an ASX listed company,
what's happening to the
then
company,
no one's going to
the
be
shareholders,
no one's going to be shouting down Alan Kohler saying, how dare you talk about how this is affecting the markets.
And so I felt
it
was a bit unfair, the criticism that was made by some quarters about the fact that it was treated as a football story.
An expert that's meant to be giving his insight into the game, right? Like, that's his whole thing. So it's like, that's where he draws...
That's his job, yeah.
Yeah, that's where he draws experience from to be like, well, this is what it would mean for the team. But I think the problem is tensions are so high that I think people feel that it's somehow dismissing the alleged assault, which I don't think it actually is.
I don't think anyone's arguing that there's anything more critical to this story or to this situation than what has happened to the women involved at the centre of it. But it is, you're right, it's a story that covers a lot of ground, and there's a lot of people talking about this who don't have any understanding of experience of sexual assault. A lot of people who are commenting on this who don't have any understanding of sport and people's relationships to their clubs and to the sports that they support. And there's a lot of people who also don't have any understanding
of the law, I think.
Of the law, exactly, and of how these are going to be investigated.
Some of the coverage and commentary, I've been really worried is like quasi-prejudicial. If all of this plays out before the police have even decided whether it's worth going to the prosecutors and saying, is there a case here, before anyone's been charged, before if it gets to that point, could be a trial in a court somewhere, and it's all played out publicly. I don't know.
And I think that's the other thing. Like, the public sometimes don't know the protocols or the language as well. Like, sometimes the language that needs to be written. Yeah. And it's not in any way because the media is feeling one way or the other. It's legal reasons.
Yeah. There's no other way to talk about it without, allowing justice to proceed as it should. And if people are upset about that, then they're probably not understanding that the best way that you can support a victim or an alleged victim is to, allow for a complete and thorough investigation. And the only way to do that is to comply with the law. And if you don't like the system, then show me a better one.
Yep.
Yeah. That's actually great. That's a great final line, Liz.
Thank you. All right, it's time to move on. But no, I do really like this next story that you have brought to our attention, Caleb, which is...
such a Caleb story.
Such a Caleb story, but from a Melbourne doctor who... I'm just going to read out the headline because he's asking he's telling us why senior doctors now fear giving frank feedback to the next generation. And it's not just about doctors. I think this can be applied to any workplace and probably a number of other situations. But he's saying that when we have, in becoming appropriately intolerant of cruelty, we've also become rather less capable of distinguishing it from criticism, and basically we've become less capable of giving informed feedback, and we've gone too soft, and it's really having bad ramifications. But yeah, what's really got to you about this one, Caleb?
Well, I think the pendulum's just swung in the opposite direction, like too far, right? I mean, sure, there was a time, and notoriously, his sector of medicine has had big problems over years of, you get the new nurses or the new doctors come in and they're on a placement and the old guard just absolutely pillory them and go through hazing processes and whatever. And it's like, well, if you don't want to work 26 hours a day as well, then there's something wrong with you, etc., etc. And all of that stuff ought to be cleaned up, right? But in doing so, it's now become basically impossible to give constructive feedback.
In the workplace.
but constructive feedback is now taken by some people to be bullying. And it's like, it's not always a pleasant experience when someone tells you you've done something wrong or that there's something that you could do better. But how do you get better if you don't go through those experiences? And I think, we've got this world now where kids have been brought up, everybody gets a medal, we don't keep the score in kids' football or whatever it is on the weekend because it's not about winning. Well, the real world is about winning, actually. And when you get out there in the real world and you have to discover that, to get paid, you've got to do a good job and you've got to be better than the other person. You should have done
the speech and Remember the
Titans. We've raised a generation, part of it comes down to parents as well, but we've raised a generation of kids who are now afraid of being criticised or even helped in some regards.
But I think it's interesting that a doctor's written this, right? Because I often think in journalism, or even with now I'm doing presenting, right, feedback is genuinely quite objective, right?
Yeah.
So even if your boss probably does know better 9 times out of 10, but my boss could say something to me like, oh, I think this line is a bit odd the way you've written it, or this doesn't quite make sense. And I can be like, well, no, I actually, there's a bit of push and pull, right?
Yeah.
But with a doctor, I feel like there's in general there's just right and wrong ways to do things.
Yeah.
There just is.
Probably, yeah.
If you're administering a needle wrong and the doctor says, oh, mate, you need to find the vein better. And this is the tactic, this is the way we do it.
Yeah.
I'm fascinated that it's still a problem in a profession that I would think is far more black and white than interpretive.
I think it's probably more that some of that feedback has been delivered very bluntly and very aggressively in the past. And now that that's, widely accepted to be no longer acceptable, then I think people are wondering, they're going, how do I give this feedback if I'm not allowed to be a total asshole about it? And so then they get afraid to give any feedback. So I think it kind of works both ways. It's not necessarily that people are afraid to, or not willing to take on the criticism. I think people are just they don't know how to behave in this new world.
But they're also worried about, someone will make a complaint to HR and then I'll have to go and justify why I told them this. I think the world is just a bit too sanitised now. Yes, you want to deal with things that we all agree are not great, but we've also now just wrapped everything in cotton wool and it all has to be nice and kind and cuddly and lovely, and it's just simply not the case.
Yeah.
The real world is not like that. Let's live in the real world.
Before we get to too boomer a place here, what's the harshest feedback that you've received at work?
Oh, God.
Or just a harsh piece of feedback that was ultimately for the best?
It's a very good question.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. No, you got one?
Yeah, of course.
No, she's just trying to go viral for rolling her eyes again.
I know.
It's my signature.
Is it maybe because you've had so many of them, they just roll off the
Yeah, I've had so much. I have generally had a lot of criticism in my career, and and I think it gets easier. But I don't think I always take criticism well in the moment. But I think I'm fairly reflective. But I think it is because I want to do well, and I also...
I think that's why I can't think, because I've always just gone, okay, well, I'll just take that and do something about it.
Yeah.
I've not internalized it and gone,
But I've definitely had bosses that I think have been unnecessarily cruel in the way they've delivered feedback, or just not picked their moment, or the way they've said it has been designed to humiliate me. I've definitely had a boss hold out a typo and read it out in an editorial meeting and be like, who do you think did it? And then we all had to vote. And it was me.
Is this the syphilis thing again?
And that was totally humiliating. I remember at the time going in the bathroom and tearing up. It sounds so silly, but it just felt so humiliating. And I remember thinking, I'm never going to do that. If I reach that point in my career, I'm never going to publicly humiliate someone. I'll pull them aside.
Yeah.
And so I think some things are good. I think it's good that we're thinking now not just about feedback, but about empathy as well. How do I deliver this empathetically? How do I deliver this kindly? How do I make someone... Because I do think if you make someone feel good about themselves and then you're this is amazing what you're doing here, these couple of things, and I've had it managed like this. Liz is actually a lot like this. She'll be like, this is so good, I think we can make it even better.
Yeah.
Can we tighten this up here? Can we ring this person and get a quote here? And so you leave that interaction being kind of excited to make the writing even better and the piece even better, whereas probably if she pulled me aside and was like, there's a big chunk missing here and your story doesn't make any sense, I would walk away and feel bad about myself. So I do
and then
think,
probably not deliver anything good because you're just feeling like shit.
And you're just I can't do anything right, and I feel a bit embarrassed, and you feel a bit sad, and so I do think that delivering things in a way that motivates people is actually a fine art, and I think that we should strive to have that in more workplaces. Because as much as we talk about like, oh, woke culture and you can't say anything and whatever, I still see a lot of people just terrible people skills.
Yeah.
Terrible people skills. Not mean, just don't realize they've just ruined someone's day.
Yeah.
You know, and it's absolutely just communication. I'm sure you've been in a room where you've seen someone give feedback and you've gone, that was just a bit.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Like, we didn't need to say it like that. Like, you could have said the exact same thing. So I don't think there's anything wrong with thinking empathetically. Do I think, of course, if it goes too far, yes, we should be able to have frank conversations. But I kind of like that we think now about how we say things to people in the workplace.
To some degree, but I think like there's also been, and this chap was not writing specifically about this, but a lot of people, their criticism of Gen Z in the workplace, people who hire them, is that they want constant validation.
Yeah, I want constant validation.
Yeah. And here we go, right?
It's not generational, it's just personal.
Yeah.
And it's like, isn't your pay packet a level of validation? Like, you know, if you've done an exceptional job and the boss says you've done an exceptional job, that's great.
But different
like, do I
people-
need to be rewarded and told I do a great job if I just do the bare minimum?
Happier, why not? Like, different things motivate different people, right? And like working out what makes someone feel good and motivated, isn't that just a bit clever?
Yeah.
To a degree.
And does it? I don't
But does
think
it
you
not
have
then
to
start to lose its edge once you use it all the time?
Never get sick of being hard.
Yeah, but then once you use the positive stuff all the time, the negative stuff really, that's where it gains its edge.
Good point.
So you're
Right.
going to really take on feedback more from someone who is, you know, usually pretty positive and who you respect as well. And if they tell you, hey, you didn't really hit the mark on this one, then that's probably going to sink in more than someone who's just, you know, shouting and throwing a bin at you.
Because you feel like they're on your side. You're like, oh, this person wants me to do well, and so I must have messed up. Whereas I think sometimes you can be in a relationship with a boss where you feel like they want you to do badly, you know,
Yeah.
or like they relish in your mistakes,
Yeah.
and then that can. But yeah, I obviously love a bit of praise. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I try and if I think of something.
But praise can become too much.
Yeah, but if
can't
I
it?
think of something nice in my head, I try and say it out loud. Like if I see someone I like their shoes, I'm like, oh, I like your shoes.
Sure,
Like
yeah.
if I read something in the newsroom I think someone did a good job of, I will message them and be like, hey, I just read this. I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah.
And I notice a lot of people don't actually do that, but they're probably still thinking the same amount of nice things I'm thinking.
Yeah.
You know, so I think it's good to pay it forward.
Yeah, but I think the difference is you're doing that because you want to do it, because you think, you know, oh, it was a great piece of writing, whatever I'm going to tell them, it was a
Yeah.
great piece of writing. But it crosses into something different when the people receiving that correspondence are expecting that
Do you think people are
correspondence.
expecting it?
Well, employers keep saying that they are.
Yeah.
Or they're hiring people who are expecting it.
Yeah, I definitely don't think, and I think this is absolutely down to my dad, who like never told me I was the best at anything, and I wasn't. Like he would tell me I was bad at things. I remember once I was like playing netball and he wouldn't get out of the car, and he was like, "To be honest, you're not very good, so I'm just going to stay in the car." At the time, I was like 10. I was devastated.
Yeah, it was cold.
But yeah, it was cold and he had to choose him. But I think that's actually made me like a good worker because I don't walk into a room thinking I'm the best at everything.
Yeah.
I understand that I have strengths and weaknesses, and like, you know, a strength for me is like have a million ideas. A weakness, not organized.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm aware of that. Like I can see that weakness in myself. So I think maybe as well, it's like now, I do think now like some people come into workplaces and they think feedback is a negotiation, which I think
Yeah.
is interesting. Like,
Yeah.
I think now I probably a little bit more see feedback as a little bit more of like, oh, like I might want to state my case a bit more, but I think I've earned that a little bit. But when I was like 22, no, I did not think I thought feedback was not a negotiation.
Yeah.
I thought feedback was like, if you say the sky is green, the sky is green. Like
Yeah.
I would have just followed. And I definitely get shocked sometimes. Like we've had cadets where I like, for instance, have been showing them how I would write a headline, and they like disagree. And I'm like, but,
Respectfully, you're wrong.
and I'm like, wow, like I just would never have had that confidence.
Yeah.
You
And you
know?
only build up those skills by learning that you've done things wrong. And what this bloke, I really like how he's phrased it, has called the ordinary discomfort of discovering that we've performed poorly. That's really valuable,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I think you
And we
have
all do
to. I'm a really big believer in like failure is really just as important as success. If
Yes.
anything, it's more important. And I think once you fail and then you get back up,
Yeah.
that's so much better. And I think sometimes now we're not allowed to tell people when they have failed.
Yeah.
But you don't remember
that's the
all of the
point.
tiny little like successful building blocks along the way that made you good. You remember the massive fuck ups that are absolutely mortifying
Yeah.
and the lessons that you learned from those.
Yeah, and I think it's also like I'm fascinated by this idea now of like okay, yes, like feedback can be hard and uncomfortable, and like I've definitely gotten feedback before and like gone and cried in the bathrooms. Like I think everyone has, right? But I am fascinated by this fact that now bosses have become much more accessible in the sense people will, like I'm sure you experience this, Liz, where you'll be like, give a piece of feedback and you don't feel it's a conversation, and they're like, no.
We've actually got a pretty good team, so I don't get a lot of that. But yeah, I do.
But occasionally I'm saying like you must sometimes do something and be like, oh no, I didn't like expect this to be, no, this isn't like a negotiation. This is just a rule that I'm telling you. You know what I mean? Like I find that fascinating.
I don't need the feedback in this situation.
I don't need the feedback. Yeah. And I do think that, I think sometimes as well now we have this unrealistic expectation of bosses, which is that they should meet all our needs, which the truth is bosses are not meant to meet your needs. Like watch Devil Wears Prada.
Yeah, that's what you said, Caleb. Yeah. You're getting paid and that's it.
Yeah, and it's not always going to be a perfect transaction.
Yeah, but so when I started as a cadet,
when you were 14.
At the Messenger in Adelaide, so suburban papers. And so I would file a story, and because we're working to weekly deadlines in suburban papers, not daily, you had the time to do this. And the story would come back to me not changed into what the sub wanted it to look like. I had to make the changes because I could then see the process by which the sub-editor has gone through the story and said, this should be this and that's wrong and yada yada, put that paragraph there, etc., etc. Get a comment from this person or whatever. And so it was constant feedback, which as a cadet I think was extremely valuable because it taught me how to write news
Didn't just
properly.
Fix your mistakes, made you do it
exactly.
yourself.
And I tried to make a point working in daily newspapers as chief of staff, and you couldn't.
At the age of 17.
You couldn't do it all the time.
To your middle-aged constituents.
But I
to like some
tried.
45-year-old divorcee.
I tried to do when I could with cadets that we had coming through. If a story came across my desk and I edited it, and sometimes you'd have to edit heavily because these are people who've been working here for like a month, right?
Yeah.
And if I could, I'd either send them an email and say, this is what I've done and this is why I've done it. Yeah. Or if they were there, I'd sit down and say, look, this is what I'm going to change and this is why I'm going to change it. I just want you to understand why I'm doing it.
I'm always amazed by, like, I say to cadets all the time, I'm like, oh, if once you, like, file your work, and if sometimes editors don't have time to sit down with you, I'm like, and then you just see what ends up published because you'll be amazed at the difference.
Yeah.
And some of them are like, oh, I don't read it once it's...
Wow.
And I'm like, well, there's no hope for you.
No. I think you should hand in your resignation now.
Like if you're not, because like sometimes that's how you learn. Like you just watch the changes people make.
Yeah. Well, look, we have more, not to, again, get too boomer about the whole thing, but we do have another issue with Gen Z. Mary, you're very upset that the young people aren't kissing anymore.
Oh, yeah. So there's this new study.
Yeah, you need to explain this to me.
YouGov, which I'm obsessed with. And it's a UK study, but I just am so obsessed with this article by the Times, which was saying that like 1 in 5 Gen Zers haven't kissed in the last 12 months.
What?
Yeah, like kissed each
other.
At all. And the reason why is because they're feeling like they're not feeling confident to go in for a kiss.
What, so like they go on a date and they're just not sure whether they can like lean in?
Oh.
Do you do a little kiss?
I don't like that.
You didn't like that?
No,
I quite liked
very
that.
Uncomfortable.
I quite liked it.
I must be a Gen Z.
Yeah, you didn't like that.
What's wrong with people? What?
They're just not kissing. But I think it all comes back to like lack of social skills.
Are they not kissing in public? Or are they not
kissing
just
each other in general? They're not kissing in general. But I think
are they doing other stuff?
They're not having sex and not kissing.
No, we're stuffed as a society. So they don't. Nobody. Gen Z. They've given up kissing. They've given up having sex. They've given up drinking. They've given up doing anything. All they do is go to the gym, apparently.
I just found it interesting because I feel like in your like late teens to 20s, you're pretty much kissing anyone.
Oh, 100%.
Like anyone that will kiss you, you're like, I'm down to kiss.
Yeah.
Like that's the whole point of it.
Yeah, but I reckon it's probably inherently linked to the fact they don't drink anymore. Because, you know, you'd go to the pub on the weekend, you'd have a skinful, you're on the dance floor or whatever it is. You know, you start dancing with someone, next thing you're having a pash, right?
Yeah.
But they don't go out and interact and do all these things anymore.
I wonder
and perhaps those things that brought down those, you know, inhibitions a little bit just don't exist, and so they're too scared.
I wonder if they're kissing like at school dances though, like before you get to that stage. Because isn't that just like a normal kind of adolescent curiosity? Like if people aren't kissing because they're not wasted, then I kind of understand that. But like it starts before that, right?
Yeah, like kissing, yeah, absolutely. But I think
we need to survey the high school children.
We need to ask the high school children about their kissing lives.
We'll be asked to leave for sure.
Well, push off campus. But I I do just think it's this. I just think it's like another symptom of the ability that we don't know how to talk to each other anymore,
Yeah.
and we don't know how to socialize. And I went to like Bathurst Uni for O Week for work, not for pleasure. And the thing that struck me the most was that
You weren't kissing them.
no one kissing them. Was that like they weren't out partying.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know, like we
yeah.
literally at one point went and knocked around on dorms because we couldn't find young people. So we were like, we'll just knock and see who will come and talk to us.
Yeah.
And I just think like there is this weird thing where like even kissing now, which I feel like, yeah, for sure, a little bit of alcohol gives you that bit of courage. But yeah, we were all kissing each other in high school when we were sober.
Yeah.
That was just like fair game. We all used to all get the same flu, you know, because it was just like
Yeah,
we were all
yeah,
kissing
yeah.
each other,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
And I think the fact that that's kind of dying is just makes you really sad.
And we're allegedly told on the other end of the spectrum that, you know, everyone's porn crazed and sex mad
Yeah.
and all this stuff. And you
I think people are more comfortable watching porn than trying to kiss someone on a first date.
but then why you'd think that would then convert into like, well, now I'm going to go and give it a go.
Oh, no, but I think the problem is like now porn has become so... Like, I think porn's become so angry
Yeah.
that I think people are like, I don't know how to
having
like...
a nice little kiss.
Yeah, like it's like intimacy has been lost. You know, it's kind of like people know how to like have rough sex because that's what they're watching on porn or that's what they think they want to have. But like they don't know how to like hold someone's hand or go in for a kiss or like I think there's this really weird divide where like, yes, we've never been more sexualized as a culture or been able to access that much kind of like porn. Just go on Twitter now, it's just porn, or X I should say. But we just don't have the basics.
So we need to get back to the days
When
of
was last-
Playboy.
when was the last
Because
time-
you read it for the articles.
When was the
right?
last time you kissed someone?
Oh, I don't know.
Not, you're getting,
I don't know. Not too long ago.
Caleb.
has it been a year?
No, it has not been a year. I have kissed someone in the last
Yeah.
year. Don't worry
3
about
He's
that.
not
months.
18 years old.
Yeah, in the last 3 months. Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Okay.
Did you initiate the kiss?
Oh my God.
Oh God,
I'm so sorry, Caleb.
I don't know.
Well, I just want to know. Okay.
I got no idea.
Okay.
All right. Well, we'll need to bring kissing back somehow.
Yes. Well, I think you should go out. Maybe you could meet someone and give them a kiss this week.
All right, that's your homework. Everyone go and
Thanks.
give someone a
With
kiss.
permission, obviously.
Oh, good. I'm glad you clarified
Yeah,
that,
I thought this
Mary.
was going to be fun, but it's gone to like quite a dark and awkward place.
Yeah, I know. Caleb's getting quite red.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll move on. I think that's enough. I think that's all we've got time
Yeah, I
for
think that's
today.
enough for
Indeed.
today.
All right. Love you guys.
Bye. Oh, you did a little kiss. See, it's kind of fun, isn't it?
I know. It's nice.